Hello Incorruptibles, my name is Ole Guha and welcome to our YouTube channel. Guess what? Today we'll be joined by Pastor Makhubu as he is going to talk to us about how to balance things in life. I'm looking forward to that one. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click that notification bell so that you can be up to date with what is happening. Enjoy.
Good day, Incorruptibles. What's up? What's up? Ashley Mukwebo here, and I am here with the gents. We are having a gents talk. I'm not here by myself. I'm with Kamo, Betty, and I'm also with Pastor Johnson Makhubu. So we're just taking a drive, and we're just going to be speaking to Pastor Makhubu, talking about all things, especially balance. This is a man who's got a schedule. He's got a full calendar, and somehow he manages to do everything. So we're just going to ask Mr. Makhubu. Mr. Makhubu, thank you so much for making time to be with us. And can you just tell us more about yourself, who you are, what you do, your family, and we'll get started from there.
Thank you, Ashley. It's Johnson Makhubu. I am a child of God. I work. I'm married, 2 children, married to Nomthandazo Makhubu. We are blessed with 2 children. I am an ordained pastor at Hope Restoration Ministries under the leadership of Reverend S.C. Matebula. I work, I've got a full-time job. I'm a Chief Revenue Officer at South African Revenue Service.
Collecting our money.
Yeah. We try to collect every cent, my brother, every cent. Give to Caesar and to...
But you must have money for him to collect your money, my brother.
Sure, that's me in brief.
All right. So maybe first and foremost, you can tell us what's your philosophy when it comes to balance, and how do you go about doing it?
No, look, I believe that it's very important to have a balanced life. I think we ought to want to pursue balance in everything that we do. So from a philosophical point of view, everything must balance. We must seek to balance in the aspects of our lives, and maybe we'll touch on those aspects. Whether, a human being has got a body and a soul and a spirit. Those in its various subforms must balance. So I live from a philosophy that says, without the balance, your life is in chaos.
Sure.
And therefore, you must always seek to try and balance things out. Things must somewhat tend towards a balance. And so that's the philosophy that I apply. So you're asking me, how do I pursue this balance? I think for me, firstly, it's just being awake to the fact that there is my body, there is my soul, there is my spirit. And in all these 3 spheres of my life, I need to be able to strive to make sure that they balance. There is none that takes over from the other and compromises the other one from being lived to the full. So I pursue it by making sure that all spheres that touch into those 3 aspects are fully lived, and there is nothing that is robbed at an expense of something else. Because the truth, when Ashley and everybody else that is watching, is that what you're likely to experience is that if there is one part that doesn't balance out, you will be a dwarf in that part. And then the part that you want to focus more and maximize, you'll be a giant. So you live a life where you are confused. In one part you are a dwarf, in another part you are a giant. So yeah, the philosophy is these 3 parts must balance, and there must be none that is robbed at an expense of another.
Wow, Pastor, that is profound, man. And Pastor, it seems like you live a very diverse and a varied kind of lifestyle where you strike a balance between the things that you do. And I just wanted to find out, with regards to not having a balanced lifestyle or a balance in your life, what are some of the risks that one can encounter or can experience if they don't strike a balance in the life that they lead?
Yeah, so if you don't lead a balanced life, I think I've hinted one, is that you're going to be a dwarf in some parts.
Yeah.
It's either your career is going to be dwarfed and your spiritual life is going to be super awesome, but you're not going to be going anywhere in your career. So you're going to suffer what I call dwarfism in aspects of your life. Number 2, you always gonna be living to your less potential, in those aspects that you are not balanced in. Because my view is that when you are not balancing your life out, you are almost, as I said, robbing one part to benefit the other. And the part that you are robbing that is not balanced is the part that you'll never live to the potential that God has made you for. So my challenge, or my fear when we don't live a balanced life, is that the parts that we are not strong, or we're not focused on, that we have compromised, or we have abandoned, neglected, those parts are the parts that we will never reach the full potential that God wants us to reach in our life as a complete life. Yeah, so the risk is dwarfism, and number two, the risk is in those areas that you are not maximizing and that you've neglected, you are likely to then not live to the full potential that God has truly made you to be able to live up to.
So tell me, but would you say that you've been able to, manage a balance in your life, or in all the aspects of your life? Because I think it's all good and well to talk about this balance and to say you must have a balance, you must do this or another. But personally, Pastor Makhubu, have you been able to manage, all the aspects of your life, all right? And if you have, how have you achieved this? And can you be in a position where you give us some sort of, I don't know if there's a formula or strategies that one can utilize in order to strike that balance,
Sure.
and to lead that balanced life, so that, like you said, you don't become a dwarf in a certain area and a giant in other aspects or in other areas of your life?
Sure. Look, I think that it's a constant struggle. I don't think you can ever be able to say, I have reached the maximum of the balance that I need to strike in my life. But I think it starts with being aware that balance is important. I think if you're not aware that you must strike a balance in your life, then you are gonna be living a life that is not even taking to cognizance the fact that balance must be struck. So I think that, and we're gonna talk just maybe at some point about if we put a scale of 1 to 10. I think probably I am at an 8 in terms of the balance, because my life, if I look at it, there is an aspect that talks about the career, and there's an aspect that talks about family. And maybe you may think of young adults and may say they don't have family, but I would like to tell you that in fact, even if you're a young adult unmarried, you've got a family life that you lead, and we don't want to be naive to that fact. And you look at that and you say, is it balanced? How is your time spread? You look at your education, because I believe that education is eternal. We are always studying. How do you make sure that that balances? You've got a social life, because we believe in social capital. Your net worth is determined by your network. So if you're not able to make sure that you are able to show in these different aspects, and I've not mentioned others, I think personally I have made sure that I allocate my time to my career, I allocate my time to my family, I allocate my time to my education, I allocate my time to my spirituality. And I must also debunk this myth, because I think the blanket is my spirituality.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm gonna have to balance my spirituality with everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else hangs on my spirituality.
Yeah.
So my spirituality is not a question of whether I can balance, I can find a space.
Yeah.
It is a given that it is an umbrella, and everything else must hook under this umbrella. And for me, I think when I realized early in my life that the umbrella is my spiritual life, and everything else, then my career hangs on my spiritual life. My family hinges on my spiritual life. And then I was able to say, that strategy helped me to say, okay, it starts with the spirit and it ends with the spirit. Everything else then hangs from there. I hope it makes sense.
No, it makes perfect
Okay,
sense.
so let's be practical now. How do you, for example, how do you go about it? There's work. We're also training for comrades. We've been running comrades, and I know that takes a lot of training. There's family. How do you allocate time? Do you say like, okay, I'm going to work 8 to 4, and then 5 to 6 is my family, and then running? How exactly do you do it on a practical level?
So practically, when I'm one person that believes that 24 hours must be used to the maximum. There must be no idling time in the 24 hours that you can't account for. So for one, I wake up at 4:30,
Sure.
or rather at 4, and I use that for my physical self. So I'll go and do my training for an hour, run 10Ks, and that is to prepare for my comrades, and it takes care of my physical needs. So by the time everybody else wakes up, I've already run from 4:30 to 5:30, and from 5:30 to 6 I've taken my bath, and I have prepared myself to go to work. And I love to do my devotions I work in Pretoria from Kempton Park. It's almost like 42 kilometers.
Okay.
And I use that time to play my devotions, to just open up my phone, and because technology helps us to listen to some inspirational messages, and also just to pray on the road as I go to work, to say, Lord, thank you for this day, dedicate this day. That grounds my spiritual life. I'm at the office at 6:30, and between 6:30 and 7:30, I am just going through my normal administration pieces of work. And by the time everybody else arrives at 8, I've even dedicated that entire office unto the Lord.
Sure.
And actually, from 7 until about 4:30, latest 5, I'm at work, and I'm at work 100%.
Sure.
And I give my 100% to my career. And by 5:30, 6, I'm at home, and my wife and I are looking at the kids' homework, and I'm with the kids, and they know that daddy is here. I'm able to engage them on what happened at school, and I give myself to them.
Sure.
And you can take it from 8 to probably 9. I'm with my wife. We are just checking on each other, and we are busy with scripture, edifying one another. Also just talking about what happened at work, so that it doesn't become a surprise in the issues that we face in life. And you see, in that debunking of the day, we're also talking about our goals. Because the reason why people don't live a balanced life is that they don't have balanced goals. So if you don't have goals for your health, you don't have goals for money, you don't have goals for your career, you don't have goals, spiritual goals. Today, I only understand the first half of the Old Testament. By the end of the next year, I should be understanding the entire Old Testament. That's your spiritual goal, and you work on it. So I partition my day and allocate my time. And when you call me on work issues at 8, you must know that Makhubu is not likely to respond to you. And he will, however, as early as 6:30 the following day, respond.
Sure.
Wow.
So it's about putting these compartments and allocating time. There's another concept of discipline. Once you've done that, be disciplined enough to make those around you know that you've got that.
Sure.
But also, actually, here's another thing. I also have on Saturdays things I do with boys. I love to look after boys. And on Saturdays, my time is much more open because there's no work necessarily. I will wake up in the morning, do some studying, and I've got some boys that I look after, and we visit each other. I visit them, they visit me, and we address some issues in life. And that fulfills my social and my civic aspects of my life. So that's how practically I'm able to cover that balance. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, as you heard, what he does is got a routine. He knows in the morning, this is what I do. So I think it's very important, as you said, 24 hours, you allocate accordingly, and you just have the discipline, you said, to stick through to whatever the habits you want to fulfill during that day.
Yeah, maybe actually. Also, there are people that sleep 12 hours, because the more you sleep, the shorter the time that you have on the aspects of your life that you want to balance. So there is nothing wrong with sleeping 6 to 8 hours. Honestly, there is really nothing wrong with sleeping 6 to 8 hours. Sisazofika la sizolala khona noma singasafuna ukulala. Why? I mean, some young adults, they sleep and they sleep. I mean, you phone them at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, this person is still sleeping. And even the potentials, the potentials, they're saying, hey, this chick, hey, Maramush, hey, Marai,
So, Pastor Makhubu, I love what you said about, you cannot strike a balance if you don't have balanced goals, and I'm hoping Ashley's taking notes here because I think he needs it more than anyone here. So, I wanted to find out because sometimes you feel like people just achieve these things, like in terms of striking a balance, being able to just live a life the way you are, just able to balance your social life, your work life, and everything else. So as a young adult, and I believe you're once a young adult, right?
Sure.
Yeah, you didn't just stop here, oh, Pastor Makhubu. Yeah. So as a young adult, did you ever become concerned, about, learning and mastering on how to balance your life, and and were you able to balance your life, back then while you're still a young person? Because sometimes we feel like as young people, because we are doing this and that, maybe we'll balance our lives when we are married. Yeah, ngizohlala kahle still when I've got a home, I've got a wife, and I've got kids and all these things. But we just want to find out from you, like as a young adult, was it a concern for you, with regards to mastering and learning how to balance your life? And were you able to do it as a young person?
Sure. So, and I think it's a good question because there are things that you cannot just instantaneously learn when they matter. You grow into them. So as a young adult, I quickly got to know that there are seven things, that areas that are very important in my life that I must balance. And I was very earlier on tuned up to those things. So somebody said to me, as a young person, you must be awake to the fact that your spiritual life must be sound. You must be awake to the fact, and there are things you must do to make sure that it's sound. They told me that socially you must be able to network with people. And I remember one guy came up with the phrase that your social capital is out of your social circles. And they make me awake as a young man, a young adult, that your social life matter. They then said to me, your civic life, you must have civic interest. You must be interested in what's happening in the civil society that you are living in.
Yeah.
And they said to me, you can't be ignorant to your civil society issues. They said to me, your financials, you cannot sort it out later. You must be able to balance your social life and your financials. They went on and said, look, despite all these things, you must also make sure that as a young man, you've got a balance in terms of your career. Your career must not dictate to you. Your family, there must be a balance with your family as well. And they said to me, look, there must also be a balance in as far as your relations in general are concerned. So these 7 areas were always bugging me as a young man to say, how do I compare in these 7 areas to I call them the 7 peaks. I must climb all these peaks. And I took a decision as a young adult to say, I'm always going to score myself and assess myself out of a 10. Where am I on my civic awareness? There are young people that don't even know that there is a homeless shelter around where they stay because they are so divorced around the civic issues. There are young people whose social life, they just want to lock up themselves, and later on they are gonna marry somebody who's gonna have social responsibilities. I mean, I do my work. Sometimes I need to go to certain functions with my spouse, and she needs to be able to get into social circles and mingle. And you need to be able to balance all these and be able to reach peaks actually in all these 7 areas of your life. You cannot be a socialite, somebody who's aware of their social circle, and somebody who is very aware of their civic duties and civic environment, but you're very poor on your money. And even if you then have to go into a home and you want to leave 5,000 rands to help them with whatever you can't, because your life is not balanced out. And again, if you then look at your career, if your career doesn't have, you don't have goals that speak to your career, as a young adult, so I learned actually Kamo, to answer your question, that mate, of the future. By the way, of the future.
Hopefully sooner, soon future.
So I learned that if I don't get these 7 areas balanced in my life, I'm always gonna struggle. It's fine. There are times where you will be doing an MBA as a young person, and that will take much of your time. But you know it's only for a time. And there are those times that you're gonna pass through where you have to still compromise a little bit and make sure that you allow a bit of imbalance because you are pursuing one goal at that time. But it can't be that you are always living out of balance.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so as Minaya said, my coach, and again, it's nice to have a coach. I had a coach who was able to ask me what's happening in this area, what's happening in that area. And they could quickly tell me to say, no, here's a homework, go rate yourself in these areas. And every time I rated myself, I knew when I was dishonest with myself.
Yeah.
So,
So it's very important to be able to go and assess yourself in these 7 areas and come back and say, yeah, you know what, I've got a lot of 4s out of 10s. I've got a lot of 6s out of 10s. I want to get to 9s in these areas. And how do I move in that journey?
so in terms of balance, there's also a lot of things that we can see with the young adults that's happening or not happening, because they're busy trying to find life, stable careers, and all those things. We call it grinding. They end up just overdoing it. What is the value or the balance of rest? What is the importance of rest, and how do you probably determine how much rest you should be taking? Obviously, not talking to the person who's sleeping 10 hours a day, because that's just laziness, but the rest between work and hustling.
So one of those 7 areas, if I'm not mistaken them, is your physical body. So your physical wellness. That's why I wake up at 4:30 and I try to go run, because I'm interested in my physical wellness and my physical body. Because there's no any other body I'm gonna have. I'm gonna have this one. Now, part of taking care of your physical body is being able. The other day I was with my wife at a restaurant and I saw 3 girls. Beautiful girls by themselves, and you could tell that they are corporate girls, and they decided to go out on a Friday night because they just wanted to, let their hair down, push the heels out, and just relax, because it's time to rest. They've hustled the full week, and now they're realizing that we need to just take care of ourselves. The other day we went to Octavia's to a spa, and I saw some group of girls at a spa. I mean, there was no man. They were just by themselves. And to me, it was a message to say, these girls probably don't do this every day. But they've decided to say, you know what, on that day, we are having a girls thing, we're having a boys thing. By the way, I don't see guys doing this often.
I was about to say.
But I see girls doing it. And that's why sometimes you find with guys, when we bottle things up and we never even get to these things where we just play a round of golf, or we just go to a spa or whatever. So I think that time, finding time for your physical wellness, your body, in the spirit, soul and body, taking care of the body is very important. And that's about creating those moments where you actually rest. I mean, as a young person, you would recall, Ashley, we would just take a retreat and go to Nelspruit. Not because we want to go fast there, but we also want to go to God's window. We just want to relax. And for me, that is very important when I actually and come. If our young adults are not able to create that time, then we get stressed, we get overworked, we actually over problematize certain parts of our life, because we don't get a space to walk away from all of it, shut ourselves away, and just be with us and those that we have allowed into our circle. So rest, very important. Up until today in my life, I mean, I decided work, no matter how much, there's demand, I'm going to get somebody to act, I'm going to delegate, I'm going to switch off my phone, and I'm going to be taking care of me, because that's very important. By the way, even when you are married, there are times where you need to go take care of you, and your spouse needs to go take care of her. And you learn these things as a young person, and you don't frown when your spouse says, I just need to go to a spa by myself. I just need to go to a park, to a botanical garden by myself. You then get to understand, oh, now I know she just needs to go and refuel. by herself, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Rest before to rest.
Yeah,
Rest.
sure.
They have to
Machita, go to a spa.
Yeah.
man.
Like you said, you never saw any guys
No.
going to the spa. It was always the ladies.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I actually went for the first time. I went to a spa last year, and I was with my wife, and I was like, "Ish." I thought it was going to be awkward. The whole thought of maybe somebody else touching you is like, "Hey, and a man in a spa," you know. But actually, it turned out to be a great experience. Where after leaving there, I felt very refreshed, and yeah, my body was a bit low. So, guys, yeah, those things are also for us.
Yeah,
Rest,
without a doubt,
yeah.
man.
Sure.
So Pastor Makhubu, as a pastor and as a corporate executive, all right, and I just want you to just tell us about the young adults that you have led, you know, in those different spheres, you know, and both who have mastered their balance and those who haven't, you know what I mean? So what are those experiences like? You know, like what is it that you observe? What is it that you see? And because obviously I know that it's different from, you know, a corporate point of view and finding yourself in a spiritual context or a spiritual environment, you know what I mean? Yeah. So when you see those young adults, both who have mastered and who haven't mastered, you know, that balance, you know, what is it that you observe? What is it that you experience? And what do you see that is, like, we could say that is lacking, you know, in terms of, you know, the two spheres that you have noticed and the young adults that you have led in both the spiritual and the corporate environment?
Maybe let's start with the corporate environment. The ones that have got a balanced lifestyle, you learn to respect them as an executive.
Oh yeah.
Because you know when they're at work, they're at work. When they're with their kids, they're with their kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when they're at work, they give you 150%. And you know that their other issues will not encroach into their work all the time, because they know how to partition different aspects of their life. So you get to respect them. When they come to you and they say, I need to go take care of my child, you've got you don't even feel like this person is lying to me, because you know that generally they live a life that is very balanced. Now, not only does it make you respect them, it also allows you to fit your own work schedule into what they've demonstrated to you as their work-life balance. So these are people who will never call to a meeting on a Saturday. Never. You will never. Because you know that to them a Saturday is reserved always. Unless there is a big audit issue that is really groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But you will first say a little prayer before you call them, because they make you respect their time.
Yeah.
Because they've got they are very balanced in their approach in terms of time. So I've seen young adults that are very, very balanced in their life. And by the way, they also make it known, Uguti, I don't live to work. I've got other things in my life.
Yeah.
And they tell you, you know, I do a park run. You know that on a Saturday morning at 7, they are at a park run. So, you know, no matter what ideas you have, you must be careful. So you respect them for that. And then I also have found those that don't have balance whatsoever. These are the ones that actually, at 9 o'clock, they're still at the office. Because they fail. And by the way, to me as an executive, being at work at 9 does not mean you are committed. It just means you don't know how to balance things and manage your time. So I don't clap for you if you're at work at 9. No, it doesn't mean anything to me. Now I found those and it becomes a problem, because you then see other areas of their life disintegrating. Somebody that is not balanced, you see, you get garnishes for their debts coming in. You hear that they are not able to come to work because they owe other colleagues like Msebenzini money, because they don't live a life that is balanced to be able to take care of every area of their life. So and it's detrimental to their own career growth, because then you don't look at them with the light of, I can trust this person with responsibility, because they are not balanced in their lives. Now that is on the corporate side. And by the way, I must say, it's sad on the corporate side if somebody cannot cannot live that balanced life. They tend to be very much abused in the workplace because they are available only for work. They've sold themselves as career buffons, career giants. I'm thirsty for my career and I'll do everything and anything for my career. And for me, it's not career or nothing. Push your career, but not at an expense of other aspects. It can't be that you are a single mother as a young adult and lo mntwana waziwa auntie endlini, and we don't even know the things they're struggling with and the bullying they're suffering at work. We know that you are a young adult and you are 28 and you've got a child, but it's very important to be able to balance. And you are pursuing your career fine, but not at the expense of other aspects of your life. That's my corporate experience. And by the way, as a corporate executive who's responsible, it's also your job to try and mentor those that are out of sync. To say, you are in danger, my young girl, if you're not going to balance your life optimally. Now, spiritually, I've found people, I'm an evangelist. I found people that they would do everything and anything to be in a pulpit. And they are spiritual giants. They know every verse in the book. They know every revelation in the book. But when you ask them about their personal development, so what are you doing about your own development if you are in ministry? How are you making sure that you are getting deeper into ministry by learning leadership in ministry, administration in ministry? And if you're not in ministry, how are you making sure that at the call center where you're working, they're not only hearing the verses that you know, but they're also seeing aspects of you that are growing. So I've seen young adults that are just stereotyped. They put ama clubs and they just focus on no, Minanje, I want to hear nothing, and I just want to read my Bible and nothing else. And again, they then become dwarfs on other aspects of life. When they need to mentor and counsel other young people, we can't use them because they're not exposed on other social issues and civic issues. And by the way, I think this is an area that is very important, because if we're going to use young adults to help young stars that are teenagers, we need young adults that are very balanced, that can be able to be spoken to about career, can be spoken about money, can be spoken about aspirations that touch on, I want to lose weight and weight is worrying me. I'm called a fatty boom boom at school. And a young adult is going to say, no, this is what can be done. So in a church, I found young adults that are not able to help teenagers because they themselves are not balanced. So how do you disciple if you are not balanced? Yeah. That's why you found Jesus dealing not only with spiritual matters, he dealt with hunger in front of his disciples, so they can understand that people will physically get hungry, and you cannot ignore that as somebody who is discipling. So for me and gents, I've seen a very horrible side of just people that are living an unbalanced life. And by the way, they've got a tendency of thinking that an unbalanced life is a standard, whereas actually it's a misnomer. So your unbalanced life, the fact that when you are always on the books, tells me that there is something wrong. The fact that when you're a hermit, after church you are in your house, after work you are in your house, you don't have a social life whatsoever, tells me that there's something wrong in your balance. And therefore you're not able to learn. I mean, there are things I learned simply because I was with the CEO of another company and they told me about their struggles, and I said, oh, so when I deal with people at work on tax issues, I need to be aware on this issue. And how did I learn that? It's because of social networking. Yeah.
So Pastor Makhubu, you touched on something very important, and you said you don't applaud someone who stays at work up until 9, not because they're not doing their job, but it just shows that there's no balance. All right. So are you saying that we can never get to a point where we're saying, no, my job is too demanding? Because you get that a lot. Where people can't do certain things because their jobs are too demanding. People can't come to young adult gatherings on a Saturday because their job is demanding and they have to be at work. So in that regard, what do we say? Do we say that it's important for us to make it known, to our employers, to say, listen, on Saturdays, unfortunately, I've got 1, 2, 3, or do we just say, there's young adults on Saturday, there's a hangout or there's a fellowship, and I'm just gonna tell them that no, I can't make it, and maybe genuinely so, that if I don't go in on that Saturday, I'm gonna fall behind, on my work, because I genuinely feel like my job is just too demanding. Like, how do you strike a balance with regards to that? How do you, negate around that? How you like?
Yeah, so a job is demanding, and it has got troughs and peaks.
All right.
So if your job is demanding, always demanding, you must ask yourself whether you are competent to do the job.
Yeah.
So I come from a school of thought that says there are demands, we must allow for the demands, but you can't always work an 80-hour week. It's fine when there are demands that come through because we are closing the financial year and you are the chartered accountant of the company. We understand we're not going to see you in young adults because you are closing the financial year. But it can't be that the same intensity that you experience when you are closing a financial year as a chartered accountant of a company is the same intensity when it's a normal year. It then worries me to say, are you able really to manage the demands of the job? Because sometimes you just find that people are not able to delegate people. So it's a symptom of other things that makes people to say my job is demanding. Maybe you've not trained people, maybe you've not mentored people, maybe you've not delegated enough, maybe you don't even have the trust to be able to give other people the work. You are the person that has to do the work all the time. So for me, Kamo, I honestly, I have been in that place where I felt, no, my job is demanding. But there are people whose job is much demanding than the president's. And you ask yourself, I mean, I know, even the president is able to take some time off.
Yeah, no.
But I know, when you are always not found, and so I think let's run away from this charade. And there's also this thing of saying, no, if my job is demanding, then I'm important.
Yeah,
banking and stuff like that. So let's move away from this artificial importance that we attach to jobs that makes us not to be able to be active in other parts of our life that needs us to be active.
So someone said you also treat people how you teach people how to treat you. Is there how would you teach your boss if they're putting too much things on you that actually always require you to maybe work overtime? How do you tell the person that no, this is not like a healthy boundary, or this is not a healthy request? Look, I'm here until 4 o'clock and I give it my best. I can't take work at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ashley, it's very important to be very honest with your boss. Some bosses don't think that we have children because we've never told them that I've got children.
Yeah, true.
I'm not married. Yes, I'm a young adult. But just because I'm not married does not mean that all the married guys can leave and then I can stay. So it's very important to be very honest with your employer, to be able to say, I've got 2 kids, I'm 35, I'm single, I'm a young person by the definition in South Africa. But honestly speaking, and it's not your business how I got 2 children and I'm not married, it's none of your business. But the fact of the matter is I've got those 2 kids, and like the married person, I need to tuck them in at night.
True.
Therefore, when we are gonna give each other work, let's also understand the timelines of delivery. Having an understanding of the fact that I've got these other commitments that I cannot compromise on. So I find that sometimes we don't sit our bosses down. There's something that is called upward management. There's downward management by managers to their employees, but employees also need to manage upwards.
True.
And how do you do that? By being honest, to say, these are my commitments in life. And therefore, there are things that I need to understand that if you wanted it on Sunday evening, you can only get it on Monday morning. Because I of course, if it's an exception, we make exceptions, but it can't be the norm. So, Ash, I'm saying managing upwards is a skill we must generate as young adults.
Yeah.
But you can only do that when you are honest. You must be honest with your boss about your commitments in life so that they can also respect you. There are people that are running NPOs or NGOs. They started an NGO. They are young adults. but they've never told their boss about it. So their boss doesn't even know
Yeah.
that they've got such a huge commitment, which is actually something that they should discuss at the boardroom to say, I've got employees in my team that actually are so socially responsible that they do these things. So for me, it's about being honest, Ashley, and making sure that your bosses understand your other commitments in life.
And I think you answered, very well in that regard, because sometimes we feel like, when it comes to the challenges that we as young adults have with regards to the corporate life, the spiritual life, and so forth, and finding and striking that balance, you said something about communication, talking to your boss, allowing your boss to know, hey, I've got an NGO or I've got kids, also being in a position where you just let people know that I can work up until a certain time, but after this, there's other extra, activities that I have to adhere to. Well, so, like, do you think those are the only challenges that we have as young adults in terms of striking that balance in our lives, in terms of just communicating and allowing the people around us to know what it is that we do, what it is that we have, what it is that we are preoccupied with? Do you think those are the only challenges, or do you think there are more challenges as young adults that we experience and they hinder us from having that balanced life that we so seek and want to we desire to have?
Yeah, look, it's not only that. I must give young adults of the 21st century some credit.
Yeah.
The time demands on the young adult of today are not the same as the time demand of the 20th century young adult. You are expected to be on Zoom this, Teams this. You are expected. There's many demands that are placed on the young adult today.
Yeah.
But it needs a young adult to be able to filter, and you can only filter if you've got sound life goals, and those must be balanced. If you don't have them, what will happen is that you will be tossed to and fro. So I appreciate that the demands are quite different in the 21st century, and young adults need to be able to divide their time in a diverse set of things that they need to focus on. And look, some young adults are spending a whole lot of time at work because, and one day we'll talk about it, gents, because they have to also be responsible for the black tax.
Yeah.
So the little bit of overtime that you are getting, 3,000 rands a month, allows you to take care of home, whilst you're also taking care of Joburg and the flat that you are staying in, and the apartment that you're staying in. So for me, it's very important to be able to understand that the demands are different and we're not trivializing them. But we are saying if you've got strong goals that cover those 7 areas we speak about, and you are committed and you are transparent on those goals, people know those goals, then you should be able to fend off all other challenges that you may face around this. I know our time is coming to an end, but let me also say this. If you're a young man, a young woman, and you've got a calling of God in your life, it does not mean you can't say to those that are leading you spiritually, Abu Pastor Makhubu, but you know what? I want to pursue this, but I also want to pursue that. I also want to pursue that.
Yeah.
And don't let us bottle you into, because we are there and we are mentoring you, we are coaching you, we are leading you. It's also very important for you to be very honest. And because we may see things in you, we may see you and say, you are going to be the manager. And you're saying, no, I want to be a specialist in this company. We may think of you as a future pastor. And you may say, no, actually, I am fine just evangelizing.
Yeah.
So it's very important for you to be honest. Because balance can be maintained by people that are honest in every sphere of their life.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful. Do you have any material you can recommend? Books, podcasts? So if someone's saying that they want to live a balanced life, what can they read? How can they develop themselves?
Ash, that's a tough one. But firstly, just read the Bible.
Okay. So that's a tough one. It's tough to read the Bible.
Just read Proverbs.
But I like that.
Just read Proverbs. It will give you enough on areas of life that are diverse. there is an over and above that. There is this book, this series that people don't like to read, but I just sometimes read it. It would be something for dummies, or programming for dummies, or finance for dummies. There's another one, balanced life for dummies.
Okay.
You can find it at exclusive books. It just talks to areas of your life, and it's written in a very easy way. There's another book by Quatrina Bynum. It's called The Balanced Life. And Ashley, I'll give you the exact titles, but it's called The Balanced Life. And I find it to give very powerful strategies that we can be able to adopt. And there's many others, but those are quite important for me. And I think I can cite those actually.
No, thank you so much, Pastor Makhubu, for making time. We really appreciate it. We trust that you young adults out there, everyone who's listening, you've learned a lot, and that you will go out there and have yourself a balanced life.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I mean, this is just a clear indication that you do have a balanced life. I mean, you were able to go and share the word and come and still be able to share the word with us here. This is the balance that we are talking about. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's really appreciated. Thank you.